3 years of marriage, a small apartment in Portland, and a love that made every square foot feel like a mansion. That was my life with Ernestine before my family decided they knew better. She taught preschoolers. I built furniture with my hands. We were not rich, but we were happy. Then my mother called on a Friday evening with what she called wonderful news. What came next nearly destroyed everything we had built together. Before we dive into this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If stories about family boundaries and fighting for your own happiness resonate with you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you will want to hear how this unfolds. Ernestine and I met 4 years ago at a farmer's market in downtown Portland. She was buying sunflowers for her classroom, and I was selling handmade cutting boards for my first batch of woodworking projects. She smiled at my crooked price tags, and I fell for her right there between the organic tomatoes and the artisan bread stand. Our apartment sat on the second floor of an old Victorian house in the Hawthorne district. One bedroom, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to stand in at the same time, and a living room where we spent our evenings reading or watching old movies on a second-hand television. The hardwood floors creaked in all the right places, and the morning light came through the east window like honey pouring into a jar. Ernestine woke up every morning at 5:30. She would make coffee, pack her lunch, and review her lesson plans at our tiny kitchen table before heading to Bright Horizons preschool on the other side of town. She earned $32,000 a year, which barely covered her student loans and her half of our expenses. But watching her talk about her students, about 4-year-old Marcus, who finally learned to tie his shoes, or little Sophia, who spoke her first full sentence in English after arriving from Guatemala, I understood that her work was worth more than any salary could measure. On weekends, she attended classes at Portland State University, working toward a certificate in special education. She wanted to help children with learning differences, the ones who fell through the cracks in traditional classrooms. She came home exhausted every Sunday night, but her eyes sparkled when she talked about what she was learning. I worked from a garage I rented 3 blocks from our apartment. The space smelled like sawdust and wood stain, and I spent my days turning raw lumber into tables, chairs, bookshelves, and custom pieces for clients who found me through word of mouth. I made about $40,000 in a good year, sometimes less. But I chose my own hours, selected my own projects, and created something tangible with my own 2 hands every single day. We were not building an empire. We were building a life. My family never understood that distinction. My mother, Dorothy, lived alone in a 4-bedroom house in Sacramento after my father passed away 7 years ago. She filled her days with church committees, neighborhood association meetings, and opinions about how her children should live their lives. At 62, she had energy that would exhaust people half her age, especially when it came to managing everyone around her. My older sister, Amanda, had always been the golden child. She graduated top of her class from UC Berkeley, went to Stanford Law School, and now worked as a partner at a corporate law firm in San Francisco. Her husband, Theodore, was a cardiologist. They lived in a house in Pacific Heights worth more than I would earn in 3 lifetimes. Amanda drove a Mercedes, wore designer clothes, and scheduled her life in 15-minute increments. My younger brother, Kevin, took a different path to success. He dropped out of college, taught himself to code, and now worked as a senior developer at a tech company in Seattle. He made more money at 27 than my father ever made in his best year. Kevin meant well, but he measured everything in optimization and efficiency, including relationships. To my family, success meant corner offices, 6-figure salaries, and homes with multiple bathrooms. My woodworking shop and Ernestine's preschool classroom did not fit their definition. They made their opinions known in small ways at first. When we got married at the courthouse instead of having a big wedding, my mother cried and said she hoped we would reconsider and do it properly later. When we chose our apartment, Amanda offered to help us find something more suitable in a better neighborhood. When Ernestine mentioned her teaching job at our first family dinner together, Kevin asked how long she planned to do that before moving into something more serious. Ernestine handled their subtle digs with grace. She smiled, changed the subject, and vented to me later in the privacy of our bedroom. I should have stood up for her more. I should have drawn clearer lines. Instead, I made excuses for my family and told her they meant well. That Friday night in October, I was finishing a rocking chair for a client when my phone rang. My mother's name appeared on the screen, and I almost let it go to voicemail. But something made me answer. Her voice sounded different, excited, almost giddy. She told me she had wonderful news. The whole family was coming to Portland next weekend. She had already booked the flights and reserved rooms at a hotel downtown. When I asked what the occasion was, she laughed and said it was a surprise. She said she and my siblings had been working on something special for me and Ernestine, something that would change our lives for the better. I tried to ask more questions, but she talked over me. She said everything would be explained when they arrived. She said to trust her. She said she only wanted what was best for us. After she hung up, I stood in my garage, holding the phone sawdust settling around me like snow. Ernestine appeared in the doorway. She had heard my side of the conversation. Her face showed no surprise, only a quiet resignation I had seen too many times before. She asked what my mother wanted this time. I told her about the visit, about the surprise. Ernestine nodded slowly. She asked if my family thought our lives needed fixing. I did not have an answer. She turned and walked back to the apartment, and I did not follow her right away. I should have. That hesitation was the first crack in the foundation. They arrived on Saturday morning like a small invading army. My mother flew in from Sacramento. Amanda and Theodore drove up from San Francisco in their Tesla. Kevin took an early flight from Seattle. They had coordinated their arrivals to land within an hour of each other, which told me this visit had been planned for weeks. My mother rented a suite at the Sentinel Hotel downtown. When Ernestine and I met them there for lunch, I felt immediately out of place. The lobby gleamed with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. My work boots left faint prints on the polished stone. Amanda hugged me stiffly, her designer perfume overwhelming. Theodore shook my hand and asked about the parking situation in our neighborhood. Kevin showed me his new smartwatch and explained its features in exhaustive detail. My mother kissed both my cheeks and held me at arm's length, examining me like a project that needed improvement. We walked to a restaurant nearby that charged $28 for a salad. My mother ordered wine for the table without asking what anyone wanted. Amanda talked about their recent trip to Tuscany. Theodore mentioned his new partnership at the hospital. Kevin complained about Seattle traffic while checking his phone every 30 seconds. Ernestine sat quietly beside me, her soup growing cold while she listened to conversations that never quite included her. That evening, my family came to our apartment for dinner. Ernestine had spent hours preparing her grandmother's pot roast recipe, the one she made for special occasions. The apartment smelled like rosemary and garlic when they arrived. My mother walked through our home like a real estate appraiser. She commented on how cozy everything looked. She asked about the age of our appliances. She touched the peeling wallpaper near the bathroom and said nothing which communicated everything. Amanda sat on our second-hand sofa and crossed her legs carefully as if she might catch something from the fabric. She asked where we kept our wine glasses, and when Ernestine produced mismatched glasses from the cabinet, Amanda smiled a smile that never reached her eyes. Theodore stood by the window and made observations about the neighborhood. He mentioned crime statistics he had looked up. He wondered aloud if we felt safe walking here at night. Kevin photographed everything: the kitchen, the bedroom doorway, the view from our single window. He said he wanted to remember this place. The way he said it made clear he expected us to leave it soon. During dinner, my mother dominated the conversation. She asked about my woodworking business, but her questions revealed she did not consider it a real career. She asked Ernestine about teaching, but her tone suggested she was discussing a hobby rather than a profession. When Ernestine mentioned her special education certification program, my mother nodded absently and changed the subject to Amanda's recent promotion. Ernestine's pot roast received faint praise. My mother said it was sweet of her to cook, but suggested they order from a restaurant next time to save Ernestine the trouble. Amanda ate half her portion and pushed the rest around her plate. Only Kevin finished his serving, and even he made a comment about preferring his meal delivery service back home. After dinner, my family returned to their hotel, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than any conversation. Ernestine washed the dishes without speaking. I dried them without knowing what to say. The next morning, my mother texted me. She wanted us to come to her hotel suite at 10 o'clock for a family meeting. She said it was important. She said not to be late. Ernestine and I arrived at exactly 10. The suite overlooked the city, bigger than our entire apartment. My mother had ordered a room service breakfast spread that must have cost $200. Croissants, fresh fruit, multiple juice options, coffee in a silver carafe. Amanda and Theodore sat on one sofa. Kevin sat in an armchair. My mother stood by the window like a general preparing to address her troops. Ernestine and I were directed to a love seat facing everyone else. We were not participants in this meeting. We were the agenda. My mother began by saying she loved me. She said she loved Ernestine too. She said everything she was about to share came from a place of deep caring for our futures. Then she explained what they had done. Amanda spoke first. She had contacted her law firm's human resources department about their administrative positions. She had identified an opening for an operations coordinator. The job paid $73,000 a year with full benefits, a retirement plan, and opportunities for advancement. She had submitted my resume, which she had rewritten and improved without my knowledge. The firm wanted to interview me on Monday. My mother added that the position was in San Francisco. She said we could stay with Amanda and Theodore while we found our own place. She had already researched apartments in acceptable neighborhoods. Before I could respond, Kevin presented his contribution. He had forwarded Ernestine's resume to his company's training department. They were looking for a corporate education specialist to develop onboarding programs. The salary was $92,000. The position was in Seattle. He had been communicating with the hiring manager for 3 weeks, presenting Ernestine as an eager candidate ready to make a change. My mother beamed at both of them. She turned to Ernestine and said this was an opportunity to do something meaningful. She said $92,000 would give Ernestine independence and security. She said changing diapers and singing songs was not a career with a future. Ernestine's face went pale. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap. She spoke quietly, each word careful and controlled. She said she loved her job. She said working with children was meaningful. She said she had not asked for anyone to find her a new career. Amanda laughed lightly. She said love did not pay student loans. She said Ernestine should think about her potential instead of settling for less than she deserved. I watched my wife shrink into herself. I watched my family dismiss everything she valued. I watched, and I said nothing. The meeting ended with expectations. Amanda expected us to fly to San Francisco on Monday for my interview. Kevin expected Ernestine to schedule a video call with Seattle by Wednesday. My mother expected gratitude and compliance. We left the hotel in silence. In the elevator, Ernestine leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. She asked me what I thought about all of it. I told her I did not know. I said maybe we should consider their offers. I said they had our best interests at heart. Ernestine opened her eyes and looked at me like I had become a stranger. She asked if I believed that. She asked if I thought our lives needed fixing. She asked if I was embarrassed by our apartment, our jobs, our choices. I hesitated. That hesitation was my betrayal. The days that followed brought relentless pressure from every direction. My mother called daily with updates on San Francisco apartments she had found online. She sent links to furniture stores and commented on what would look nice in our new place. She forwarded me articles about career reinvention and the importance of reaching one's potential. Amanda emailed me a detailed breakdown of the benefits package at her firm. She included testimonials from other employees about the company culture. She scheduled my interview without confirming I would attend. She booked a flight and sent me the confirmation. Kevin texted Ernestine directly for the first time since they had met. He sent information about Seattle neighborhoods' cost of living comparisons and links to apartments near his company's office. He asked for her availability for a video interview. When she did not respond, he sent follow-up messages asking if she had received his previous texts. Theodore, the quietest member of my family, pulled me aside during a coffee meeting and offered medical advice. He said financial stress caused measurable health problems. He cited studies about cortisol levels and heart disease. He said he was worried about my blood pressure. He asked when I had last seen a doctor. His concern felt more like a verdict. The pressure changed something in my house. Ernestine grew quieter. She stopped telling me about her day at school. She went to bed early and turned away from me in the dark. When my phone rang and she saw my family's names, her jaw tightened and her eyes went flat. I began to doubt myself. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was holding Ernestine back. Maybe my stubborn attachment to woodworking was selfish. Maybe success did require sacrifice, and I was too proud to make it. One evening I mentioned to Ernestine that Kevin's job offer sounded interesting. I said the money would change everything for us. I said she could always teach again later once we were more stable. Ernestine set down the book she was reading. She looked at me for a long moment without speaking. Then she asked if I was still her husband, or if I had become their messenger. She asked whose side I was on. I told her it was not about sides. I told her I was just trying to look at things objectively. She stood up and walked to the bedroom. At the doorway, she turned back. She said objectivity meant considering what she wanted too. She said no one had asked her what she wanted. She said not even me. The door closed behind her, and I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by furniture I had built with my own hands in an apartment that suddenly felt like enemy territory. Monday arrived with no resolution. I did not fly to San Francisco for the interview. Amanda called me furious, demanding to know why I had embarrassed her at her own firm. My mother called weeping, asking where she had failed as a parent. Kevin texted that he was disappointed in my lack of professionalism. I thought refusing the interview would end their campaign. I was wrong. On Tuesday, my mother made a phone call that crossed every line I thought existed between family members. She found the phone number for Bright Horizons preschool. She called the school's director, a woman named Patricia, who had been Ernestine's mentor and supervisor for 3 years. My mother introduced herself as Ernestine's mother-in-law. She explained that Ernestine would be leaving her position in 2 weeks. She apologized for the short notice and said there had been a family emergency requiring relocation. She thanked Patricia for understanding and said Ernestine was too embarrassed to make the call herself. Ernestine discovered this when she arrived at work on Tuesday morning. Patricia called her into the office before class started. She asked if everything was okay. She said my mother had called about the resignation. She wanted to discuss transition plans for Ernestine's students. Ernestine stood in that office unable to speak. 3 years of building trust and reputation undone by a phone call she never authorized. Her students, the children she had nurtured and taught, were being prepared to say goodbye to her. She managed to explain that there had been a misunderstanding. Her mother-in-law had misspoken. She was not resigning. She was not going anywhere. But the damage showed in Patricia's eyes. The doubt. The uncertainty about whether Ernestine was reliable. Meanwhile, Amanda acted on another front. She contacted our landlord, Harold, claiming to represent us in a legal capacity. She informed him we would be terminating our lease early due to job relocation. She offered to pay 3 months' rent as a penalty for breaking the agreement. Harold, confused by a lawyer calling about his tenants, almost accepted. He mentioned it to me only because he needed my signature on the termination paperwork. When I told him I had no idea what he was talking about, his confusion turned to alarm. He asked me what was happening. I could not explain because I did not fully understand myself. Amanda had also placed a deposit on an apartment in San Francisco. She used my name without my consent. She scheduled movers for the following Saturday. She created an email address using my name to conduct this business, so no messages would come to my actual inbox. Kevin committed the most serious violation. Impatient with Ernestine's silence, he took matters into his own hands. He accessed the job application Ernestine had never submitted by using information from the resume he had obtained. He created a digital signature that mimicked hers. He accepted the position at his company on her behalf. The confirmation email arrived in Ernestine's inbox on Tuesday afternoon. "Welcome to the team," it said. "Start date in 2 weeks," it said. "We look forward to meeting you in Seattle," it said. She had never applied. She had never interviewed. She had never agreed to anything. Yet legally, her name was attached to an acceptance she had never given. Ernestine came home that evening carrying the weight of everything that had happened. She sat on our sofa and told me about Patricia's call about the resignation she never submitted. She showed me the email from Kevin's company. Her voice shook as she described feeling erased, as if her actual life had become an inconvenience that needed to be corrected. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face and asked what my family wanted to turn her into. She asked if they would stop only when every trace of who she was had been eliminated. She asked if I even cared that she was disappearing. Something broke open in me. I saw what I had allowed to happen. I saw my wife, the woman who had chosen me when I had nothing, being systematically dismantled by people who claimed to love us. I saw my own complicity in every silent moment, every excuse I made, every time I suggested she consider their offers. I had abandoned her. I had left her alone against my entire family while pretending to be neutral. I knelt in front of her on the living room floor. I took her hands. I told her I was sorry. I said I had been a coward. I said I had let them treat her like a problem instead of a person. I said it would stop. I said I would stop it. She searched my face for truth. She asked if I meant it. She asked if I would choose her over them. I told her she was my family now. I told her our life together, the life we had built in this apartment with our modest jobs and our big dreams, was exactly what I wanted. I told her no one had the right to take that from us. She fell into my arms and we held each other while the city darkened outside our window. When we finally separated, we began to plan. The next morning I called my mother and told her we needed to meet. I told her to bring Amanda, Theodore, and Kevin. I told her to come to our apartment at 7 o'clock that evening. I told her this was not a request. She arrived first, her face a mixture of hope and apprehension. Amanda and Theodore came next, Amanda already defensive before anyone spoke. Kevin arrived last, checking his phone as he walked through our door. They arranged themselves in our living room as if waiting for us to thank them. My mother smiled expectantly. Amanda looked around with barely concealed impatience. Theodore stood by the window again, a neutral observer. Kevin sat in the chair where I did my reading, scrolling through emails. Ernestine stood beside me. For the first time since this began, she held herself tall. I addressed my mother first. I told her she had called my wife's workplace and told them she was resigning. I asked her if she understood what she had done. I said she had jeopardized Ernestine's professional reputation with a lie. I said that was not help. That was sabotage. My mother's smile faded. She said she thought she was helping. She said she was trying to make the transition easier. I told her there was no transition. I told her Ernestine loved her job and she was keeping it. I told her to never contact anyone in our lives without our explicit permission again. I turned to Amanda next. I said she had placed a deposit on an apartment without our consent. I said she had contacted our landlord claiming to represent us legally. I said she had attempted to terminate our lease by impersonating me. I asked if she understood those were potentially criminal acts. I asked if she wanted me to explain that to her partners at the law firm. Amanda's face reddened. She said she was trying to help us get organized. She said we would never have done it ourselves. I told her we did not want her organization. I told her we did not ask for her help. I told her to cancel the deposit, retract the notice to our landlord, and stay out of our housing decisions permanently. I turned to Kevin last. I told him he had forged my wife's signature on a job acceptance. I told him identity theft was a federal crime. I asked if he wanted Ernestine to press charges or if he would prefer to fix his mistake immediately. Kevin looked up from his phone for the first time. His face went pale. He said he was just trying to speed things along. He said the opportunity was too good to waste on hesitation. I told him Ernestine's career decisions belonged to Ernestine. I told him to send an email to his company within the hour, retracting the acceptance and explaining it was submitted without authorization. I told him to apologize to my wife for attempting to hijack her life. The room fell silent. My mother stared at me as if I had become someone she did not recognize. Amanda's jaw tightened. Theodore, for once, looked directly at me with something new in his expression. Kevin clutched his phone like a lifeline. Ernestine spoke then. Her voice carried 3 years of swallowed insults and dismissed dreams. She told them she was a preschool teacher. She said she shaped young minds and helped children find their voices and taught them kindness and curiosity. She said her salary would never compete with corporate positions, but her impact would outlast any quarterly earnings report. She said she was proud of who she was and what she did. She looked at my mother and said she loved her son. She said she had chosen him knowing he came with a family that did not accept her. She said she had endured years of subtle criticism and open condescension because she believed families could grow. But she was done enduring. She was done being polite while they dismantled her existence. She told them our apartment was our home. She said our choices were our own. She said if they could not respect that they should not expect to be welcome in our lives. My mother began to cry. Amanda grabbed her purse and announced she was leaving. Kevin mumbled something about catching his flight. Theodore helped my mother to her feet and guided her toward the door. At the threshold, Amanda turned back. She said we would regret this. She said we were throwing away our futures over pride. I told her we were choosing our futures. I told her pride had nothing to do with it. I told her this was about respect, and they had offered us none. The door closed behind them. Ernestine and I stood in the silence of our apartment, the one they had dismissed, the one that held our books and our photographs, and the furniture I had built, and the lesson plans she had written. We stood there and breathed. For the first time in weeks, I felt like myself again. The weeks that followed were difficult in ways I had not anticipated. Choosing my wife over my family felt right, but it also felt like grief. I had lost something, even if that something had been hurting us. My mother did not call for 6 weeks. The silence from Sacramento was complete. Amanda sent no emails. Kevin stopped texting. For a while, I checked my phone expecting contact that never came. Ernestine returned to bright horizons with her head held high. She met with Patricia privately and explained everything that had happened. Patricia, a mother of 4 with her own complicated family history, understood completely. She told Ernestine she was valued. She told her the children needed her. She asked if she was okay. Ernestine came home that day, lighter than I had seen her in months. She told me about the conversation over dinner. She said Patricia had hugged her. She said she felt seen again. My woodworking business continued to grow. A local restaurant owner, who had purchased a set of my chairs, commissioned me to build custom tables for his entire dining room. The project took 2 months and paid better than anything I had done before. Other orders followed. My reputation spread through the community of small business owners who appreciated craftsmanship over mass production. We did not have excess, but we had enough. More importantly, we had peace. 3 months after the confrontation, my mother called. Her voice sounded different, smaller, less certain of its own authority. She told me she had been thinking. She said losing contact with me had forced her to examine her own behavior. She said she had always believed she knew what was best for her children, but she was beginning to understand that knowing what was best for herself did not qualify her to dictate their paths. She apologized. Not for wanting good things for me, but for defining good things without consulting me. She said she missed me. She asked if there was any possibility of starting over. I told her I needed to discuss it with Ernestine. I told her starting over would require genuine respect for our choices. I told her we would not revisit this territory again. Amanda sent a handwritten letter the following week. Her handwriting was precise like everything else about her, but the words revealed cracks in her polished exterior. She wrote that she envied our freedom. She wrote that her scheduled life sometimes felt like a beautiful prison. She wrote that watching us choose happiness over status had confused her because she had always believed they were the same thing. She apologized for overstepping. She asked if we could try to know each other as adults, instead of roles in a family hierarchy. Kevin video called Ernestine directly. He looked nervous on the screen, his usual confidence diminished. He apologized for the job application for the forged signature for treating her career as a problem to be solved. He asked about her students. He listened when she talked about a little boy named Marcus who was struggling with speech delays and how she was developing new approaches to help him. For the first time, he seemed genuinely interested in her as a person rather than a variable in an equation. We accepted their apologies, but we established clear boundaries. Family visits would happen on our terms. Decisions about our lives required no input from anyone except the two of us. Criticism disguised as concern was not welcome. Respect was not optional. 1 year after that terrible weekend, our lives looked different. Ernestine completed her special education certification and received a promotion to lead teacher at her school. Her new position came with a small raise and larger responsibilities, including mentoring new teachers. She came home exhausted but fulfilled. I rented a larger workspace and hired my first assistant, a young woodworker named Daniel, who reminded me of myself 10 years earlier. Teaching him the craft gave my work new meaning. We completed projects together that I could never have finished alone. My mother visited twice that year. She stayed at the same hotel downtown, but she came to our apartment without commentary about its size or location. She asked Ernestine about her students by name. She admired the bookshelf I had built for our living room. She ate pot roast and asked for the recipe. Amanda and Theodore invited us to San Francisco for a weekend. We stayed in their guest room and toured the city without anyone mentioning career opportunities or real estate prices. Amanda asked about my woodworking with genuine curiosity. Theodore recommended a good restaurant where the tables reminded him of my work. Kevin flew to Portland for a weekend and spent an afternoon at Ernestine's school observing her classroom. He watched her work with a child who struggled to communicate and saw the patience and skill she brought to moments that could never be measured in metrics. He told me afterward that he finally understood what she meant about meaningful work. We were not a perfect family. We would never be. But we had found a way to be an honest one. Looking back, I realize my family was not evil. They loved me in the only way they knew how, which was by trying to make me match their image of success. They could not see that success has many shapes, that happiness is not a formula, that love sometimes means letting go of your own expectations. The hardest moment was not confronting them. The hardest moment was admitting I had nearly betrayed my wife by failing to see what they were doing. I had almost let the pressure convince me that our life needed fixing. It did not need fixing. It needed protecting. Ernestine taught me that standing up for your choices is not selfish. It is necessary. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are doors that let the right people in on the right terms. We still live in Portland. We still have our small apartment, though we have plans to save for a house with a workshop in the backyard. Ernestine still teaches preschoolers. I still build furniture. We still cook dinner together and watch old movies and read books side by side in the evening quiet. My family tried to fix our life without asking. It went horribly wrong for everyone, including them. But from that wreckage, we built something better. Not just a stronger marriage, but a clearer understanding of who we are and what we value. If you are watching this and someone in your life is trying to fix you without asking, I want you to know something. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect your choices. You are allowed to define success on your own terms. The people who truly love you will eventually understand, and the ones who cannot respect your boundaries are telling you something important about themselves. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it resonated with you, I would love to hear about it. Have you ever had family members try to control your life decisions? How did you handle it? Drop your experience in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's facing the same struggle. If this video spoke to you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories about real life, real challenges, and real growth. Share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Sometimes knowing we are not alone is the first step toward finding our own strength. Wishing you the courage to protect what matters and the wisdom to know what that is. Take care of yourselves and each other.